we can advance ourselves so much more than we thought we could to be free to handle this world in which we live. It's like the overwhelm of mass shootings on TV every night, the overwhelm of the political craziness that we see, and being able to show up in the world with any sort of strength or capacity to make change requires us to be able to get up in the morning and lead ourselves. And there's that overwhelm that just hits our body, or the anxiety or the stress, all of that is more manageable than we thought.
Hi, and welcome to How We Change the World podcast. I'm your host, Deborah Rowan. Today, my guest is Michael Kline. He's a master trainer, a retreat leader, and a firekeeper. I'll have him explain that last one. After finding success in the corporate world, Michael pivoted to entrepreneurship, starting 6 successful small businesses. He had money, he had free time, and he had a great partner to share it all with, but something was missing. So about a decade ago, Michael pivoted one last time, learning the skills to help other people find the root causes of their self-sabotaging thoughts, feelings, behaviors, so that they could take the steps necessary to reach their goals, whether that goal was helping change the world or helping change themselves. Michael is the real deal. I have experienced his training, and I know him as a colleague and a friend. And I can attest to his incredible ability to move people from being really stuck with emotional blocks, whether that's from trauma or grief or something else. But he also uses the same techniques to inspire people and unleash their creative blocks and reach their creative potential. He is fun, he's funny, he's smart, he's empathetic, and I think you'll just enjoy his company and his ideas. Michael works with individuals, and he also trains other trainers. And this July, he's hosting a retreat in Costa Rica that specifically is designed to train social workers, therapists, other coaches and trainers on some of the processes that he uses. I guarantee you, if you attend this retreat, it will be life-changing for you, both for your own self and for your work. So please click on that subscribe button or the follow button and enjoy this conversation between myself and Michael Kline. Hello, Michael. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good, Deborah.
How are you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome to How We Change the World podcast. I haven't seen you in a very, very long time. I haven't seen you since way before COVID, so I want to do a little bit of catching up. But the reason why I even thought of you at this particular time was that I've been following you on Facebook with this development of this retreat that you've been putting together over, I don't know how long, last couple of years, maybe just post-COVID. You can explain how long it's been. But every time I'm intrigued, and I thought, why don't we just have you on the podcast, because I know the work that you do is so powerful. We're going to talk about all the different modalities that you use to help people change the world, change their own world. And but I really wanted to start with just at least mentioning the retreat and what it is, sort of just a big picture, and then we'll take a deeper dive. But a lot of times people like to know what the show's about right away, so I wanted to know what we're talking about first. So,
yeah. Well, I love that you reached out, and it's good to see you again. It has been way too long, and the reason it feels like I've been working on this retreat for so long is we've actually done 3 of them. We've already completed. So this is will be my 4th retreat in Costa Rica that we're hosting at Kunstmania Retreat Center, which we purchased last summer. And
you purchased what? The center?
So with a group of other investors, we fell in love with this place in Costa Rica and bought it and converted this hotel into a beautiful little retreat center that's really quite magnificent and unique in its own right. A very private, safe, and sacred kind of feel to it, surrounded by jungle and ocean and quietness. And it's just a spectacular place. I walked into the entrance and just felt at home. My body just knew we needed to buy into this place and be here and spend a lot of time here. And so I have. And so,
I've seen you coming and going quite a bit. I've seen you traveling down there quite a bit. And it sounds like from the background of the place that you don't really need to do any work. You just invite people to come down, and then that's the end of your
it's
work.
Involved a lot of work.
No, I mean, you wouldn't.
From a hotel to retreat center, our focus is a little different. From tourism to sacred space, where we can do all sorts of more, to do circle with fire ceremonies or beach circles and things of that nature. And what we find is there's a natural attraction to people who want to change the world. And we are in the Nicoya Peninsula of Costa Rica. It's one of the 5 so-called blue zones. Not so-called. It's actually called the blue zones of the world. I don't know.
Yeah. I did not know it was in a blue zone. That's amazing.
Yeah, one of the blue zones. And we get to see why. I mean, it feels like life is worth living to be over 100 there.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
And I feel it myself whenever I go there. And so we've done a number of different groups, each with an intention of changing the world in their own ways. It's like my last group, I was co-hosting a group of women pharmacists, entrepreneurial pharmacists, who really want to move away from, feeling like they work for big pharma to working for helping people maybe get off their meds instead of buying more.
Wow.
And how can they be of more service?
But that was fascinating.
It was fascinating. I know nothing about that world, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
I'm fire for hire on that one. I can host a fire circle and fire ceremony and circle with them.
You get to listen in though, which is fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So we use other healing techniques, but that's the kind of people that we're attracting. And so I'm hosting a RIM training, regenerating images in memory, you're a little familiar with. So that is the healing technique that I teach to coaches, therapists, teachers, facilitators, leaders, and
individuals as well,
and
right?
Individuals, yeah. For like we were talking a little bit about creative problem solving. So the creative problem solving type facilitators find this as a way. So we can talk more about how that works.
Sure.
So we've created a 7-day. It's normally a 5-day training. We've created a 7-day retreat version, where we get to add some other retreat luxuries and experiences to it because we can. And so we have that coming up in July. And that's what excited you on Facebook, because I did. How can the pictures of this place not get you excited about wanting to be there?
Especially when you're in a snowy Colorado, it doesn't really matter what you're teaching there. You just want to retreat. I'm a little less influenceable now because I'm talking to you from Belize, where I've been for about 3 weeks, and I'll be for the next 3 months. So I understand the pull of Central America and the difference in, as you said, why you'd want to live to be 100. This is not a blue zone, but there is something in the air where life is much simpler and life is quiet, and there's not the craziness of the mass shootings and everything else that's going on in our country and all the things that we want to change. Sometimes it's good to get away to be able to just hear that piece and kind of focus and clear your mind about what you actually can do, how you actually can show up in the world. So it sounds idyllic. So we're going to go into much more specifics about what you're going to train there and what RIM is. But could we start first with sort of the big picture of what Michael Kline does? And I know that you've had some career sort of pivots, as we all have throughout our life. But as far as starting with right now, though, what you do, would you call yourself we don't have to call, how about we talk about what you do rather than what to call you?
Well, I had this vision last year where I said, okay, I'm fire. And then that's a little too woo-woo for, even some of my friends. Go, what the hell does that mean? You are fire. And I said, I use the title Firekeeper at Kunstmania. I'll be the Firekeeper. People can get their head wrapped around that a little more.
Yeah.
But the metaphor that name for me. It's like I said, okay, I'll be a trainer and a retreat leader and a facilitator and a firekeeper. And I realize that sometimes when my job is just to be the fire, sometimes that's just being a source of warmth or safety in the corner. And sometimes it's the main attraction people gather around to bring their pain and suffering and anxiety and stress and overwhelm and all of that, to give it to the fire, to be recycled. And we can turn that into ash. And it's my job to be neutral about that. It's like in my own relationship with developing this metaphor, I was talking to an actual fire, as some of us do once in a while, And in my dialogue with Fire, he told me that I could keep my fear because it was too painful, too scary to give it to him, to release this, to let go of this fear I had that was holding me back. And I just want to give this to you. And he says, so give it to me. And I said, I can't. And he says, well, then keep it. I said, but it's too hard. And he says, well, then give it to me. And it's like, it's too scary. He says, then keep it. It's like, this fire is totally neutral. It'll burn what we give to it.
I see.
And we don't have to ever do anything we're not ready to do. And it took me two days, and that was one of my other weird hippie camp experiences in the jungle where we do those sorts of things. And I recommend and love, but I don't talk people into doing weird things where you talk to fires and all of that, and unless you're called to. And so I would say that's a fair title, that I will be that role here to the extent I'm able for people that are drawn to it, that we can advance ourselves so much more than we thought we could to be free to handle this world in which we live. It's like the overwhelm of mass shootings on TV every night, the overwhelm of the political craziness that we see, and being able to show up in the world with any sort of strength or capacity to make change requires us to be able to get up in the morning and lead ourselves. Yeah. And there's that overwhelm that just hits our body, or the anxiety or the stress. All of that is more manageable than we thought. It's easier to manage. It isn't, and we can do more with the root cause rather than just adding more techniques for. I love the breathing techniques. It helps a lot of people. And can we get deeper to a more root cause to increase our capacity for the overwhelm, anxiety, and stress, so that we aren't having to have more coping skills to manage it?
Very big difference. Coping with it or just releasing it.
Yeah. Stress is not the killer people think it is. It's our fear that we can't handle the stress. The actual research shows that stress is a killer for people who can't handle, who feel that they can't handle the
really?
Stress. If you're okay with stress, I mean, people who have really stressful professional careers, right? I mean, that just are what most people would call really stressful. Yeah, often have less stress-related illnesses than people who have much less stress in their lives.
Because their capacity. So interesting. So what you're talking about right now, though, is that sort of the general goal of what you're teaching there, or are you specifically speaking about RIM right now?
So RIM is the centerpiece of what I'm teaching, right? So this is a methodology that a facilitator could walk a client, that could escort a client through. Escort's the wrong word, walk's the wrong word. Facilitate, to be neutral with. For me, it's being the fire.
To be fire with, right, yeah.
But I would say to facilitate, it's client-generated and client-led. So if you're not feeling stress, well, then this isn't about stress. So it's not a stress management tool.
Right.
If you're feeling grief, then it's a grief tool. If your emotions are fear or stuckedness and you're not sure what to do with next in your life, then it's a tool for that. So I teach a lot of coaches who use it more like in an executive coaching function or an organizational coaching. They're using it for bringing more innovation, more creativity, more whole brain engagement, or even to find that more innovative, intuitive self, to go deeper for that non-ordinary state that leaders are looking for. Is that they're experimenting with psilocybin and plant medicine and yoga and meditation, and you can also get there very quickly and easily with RIM. And it's the way emotions work. It's the same process, even if you're a therapist working with PTSD or with childhood trauma. So therapists come to it to learn it, to improve their skills working with their clients that are stuck in trauma. And so it becomes whatever it needs to become for the client. It's the processing of the emotions through the body.
Yes, very much so, because I've experienced it. Absolutely, that's what it is. Well, it's getting you unstuck from where you're stuck, or it's unsticking those blocks that are unseen by all of us and unknown, which, I'll maybe in a minute I'll share like just one of the things that happened to me, because what I'd like to do though, before we go any further, is I want to, I don't know if there's a verb for making something more tangible. Tangibilize. Okay. I would like to tangibilize our conversation a little bit, just to back up, and so we don't lose too many people along the way, and just for a minute do a little bit of a step-by-step thing. So if a person is going to sign up to come to beautiful Costa Rica and can you say the name of the retreat center again? Because if you don't know the word, I know it's with passion, or it means with passion, correct? And
Consmania.
Consmania.
So it's not a literal translation, but what it comes from is this, for living a life of more passion. And really the passion that comes from agitation is a deeper sense of the root of the name. And that is kind of how our passionate lives come about, typically.
Yeah. So a person who, if they were to sign up and come to your retreat, there'd be one of 20 people, maybe 25 people at the retreat.
Yeah, I would say
total.
A maximum of 20, 18 or 20 people would be ideal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what are they signing up for? Actually, they can learn RIM, they can experience RIM, or can they go there for healing, for teaching healing, or can they go there and just chill, or what are the options for someone who's coming?
So the teaching, it's really for people who want to learn how to facilitate others through their emotions. And in the process, we do a lot of our own healing because we need to get comfortable with those scary emotions that most of us have been taught to avoid. Mm-hmm. Right? And when we can hold that space, means we've done our own work, and there's always more work to do. So whenever we close our eyes, right now, you and I can close our eyes and invite others to do the same, and something starts to show up when we turn off that outside influences and we start really focusing in on our body. Things start to show up. So we're going to learn how to take that deeper and deeper and deeper, so that what really needs to show up shows up. And if that's trauma work, and that's someone's path, we want people to stay in their own lane and work safely. Sure. Depending on the population you're serving and the work you're doing. For some, this is a way to quickly and easily process old stuck trauma. Mm-hmm. And for others, it's simply a way to tap into a knowing. Suddenly that spontaneous imagination, when we say you have this brilliant idea that comes to you in the shower, or you wake up at 4 a.m. with it, where did that come from? And those things can come up during the session frequently and easily. Mm-hmm. So we can tap into that. So what the life might look like during the retreat is maybe we'll do a sunrise beach meditation in a little circle in the morning, and have a little journaling time or silent time, and go back to breakfast and start socializing with our new besties. And maybe class will start at 9:00 or 9:30, and we'll do some quite a bit of personal diving quickly into what our emotional operating system is working with. Okay. And so we have some assessment tools for that, and we'll go deep fast. And
do you? Okay.
It goes deep, and we're not kidding around here, and it doesn't, I don't say that to scare anyone. I say that to invite people who are ready to go deeper, that feel like I've done a lot of meditation, I've done a lot of yoga, or I've not. But even people who feel they've done a lot of advanced work in whatever, EMDR or ART or internal family systems or family kinds. They've done everything else, and they're amazed by the efficacy and power and ease and quickness of this work. Right. So, and people who have no experience in any of that world can dip into it quite easily as well, because emotional processing is as easy as breathing. We've just been taught to be afraid of it. They happen.
Well, that's interesting. So naturally, we're like a duck who just shakes everything off after the skirmish. If we hadn't learned to do something else.
Yeah.
So,
right. So we'll teach that technique. We have, I would say there's a total of 4.5 days. If we do the training on Zoom, for instance, we do a 4.5 day training. Okay. We spread that amount of curriculum over 7 days so that we can mix in a breathwork experience, and we'll mix in a sound bath, and we'll mix in, a trip to the farmer's market, and we'll get up early and go walk on the beach and have some playtime. And when monkeys go screaming overhead, we're going to have to take a break and go out and look at the monkeys and go on, Facebook Live and share it with your friends.
It's very live. I mean,
it's very live. And it's a beautiful thing that most of our neighbors are monkeys, and everyone doesn't love that they get up before the roosters, but someone has to get up and wake up the roosters. It may as well be screaming monkeys.
They do scream too. There is no doubt that they are. Screaming is a very apt term. So, but if I'm not wanting to currently or maybe ever train others on, I don't want to do that kind of work, or I'm not doing it any longer, but I just want to go and learn RIM as an individual, I can do that as well? Or would you recommend it to someone like that?
Well, if anyone wants to do that, I'd have a chat with them about if that's the best path. So it depends. I would say it depends. We used to openly invite people just to come for personal growth. I mean, there's certainly no requirement to ever go use it with people. It is a class. And so it depends where you are in your growth journey.
Okay.
If you have a huge history, a trauma history that you haven't worked through yet, sometimes people get that becomes such a distraction from the learning environment that it takes away from that. But we don't have any specific requirements. No, you have to, there's no, what do you call it? There's no prerequisite specifically. And so I would say, yes, you're invited. And we'd have a conversation, get to know each other a bit first and make sure that you're...
That's smart. That protects the whole group actually from going astray, like you said. Well, let's back up and talk about you a little bit, because you started off in the corporate world. That was your, I guess we'll call it the corporate world franchise. I'm not sure what your very first thing is, and we'll go back even further in a minute. But as far as professionally, I know you worked in training and development and sort of a business, if maybe was it corporate or was it smaller than corporate? It was corporate.
Well, I don't know. We had the organization had over 1,000 franchise locations around the world. And so it was pretty corporate, had a lot of the things, the baggage that comes with. And because it was a franchise organization, the region that I was a president of, we had 35 locations. So it was a little smaller than that. And with all of the bureaucracy of being part of a global network. And oh gosh, it's hard to believe. I feel like I'm talking about somebody else.
That's why I wanted to bring it up. Because what you're talking about now, I want people to say, like, okay, you weren't always this guy. You were a completely different person 20 years ago, probably.
Don't be afraid of my woo. I used to be much, much more linear, and I thought I was a left brain person. I remember when I met Dr. Deb, the RIM creator, years ago. I showed up to the first class and I said, I'm not sure I should even be doing this class. I don't do that image stuff. It's like I've never survived the guided imagery, really. Right? I'm not capable of doing that. And of course, an hour later, she had me doing all of that. So I would say, so in corporate, here's what I learned. When I was working with my franchisees, I discovered that none of them bought the franchise so that they could pay me more royalties. Go figure.
They had other goals.
Most of them, when I took over the company, what I didn't know was that I was assuming the role of president of a company that had 0 franchisees in contractual compliance, and most of them wanted to break their contract. Most of them wanted out. And when I visited with each one of them, and in the early 90s, we didn't call it coaching. We just trying to figure out, navigate.
Tell people what to do.
And in my every discussion with them, every single one had bought that franchise to do something else in their personal life. We wanted to save our marriage because I was traveling all the time. I wanted more time, something I could do with my spouse, and we love travel, we love people, we wanted to be home for the kids, was tired of the corporate rat race. They had a reason to buy it, and much to our surprise, it was not to pay us more royalties. So how could I get them to come into the fold that's required and to be financially successful? And the only way that was going to happen was if there was something, if it was meeting their personal need. It had to come into alignment with their values. None of the language that we talked about in the 90s. It was more about trying to get them to be compliant. But what I found was when I connected with, they're working on their marriage, or, they have a dream of selling this business because they wanted to buy something else for their retirement. I thought, well, how can I help you get there? And when I went to work helping them figure out how to get to their goal, they thrived. And came into the fold, and we ended up turning the whole company around very successfully in remarkably short order. And it was every decision was made, what I realized was an emotionally driven decision. Every single decision was driven even by the people that we thought we were left brain. The only reason we have spreadsheets is some emotional need to prove that we're right or to calculate because we're afraid of trusting our gut or whatever. So
that's so you were not at all. And who you are is so deep. It not because of this training that you've done. I mean, the joy that your humor, your joy, your ease with people, your ability to see what other people are experiencing and to empathize with that. That's like vintage Michael, right? That came with the operating system, or maybe your childhood experiences developed it. So it's not all these things. It's that you knew that even back in your corporate type world.
Yeah,
that was still your.
Yeah,
no,
we
but
didn't know
you
we knew it.
Right, but you did in retrospect.
Yeah.
So then, but you left that world and became an entrepreneur yourself, right? Right after that, is that correct? Yeah. And what caused you to do that? If you were enjoying that other, like, did you just want to take a stab at it?
I've always wanted to do that. I think of my 11 siblings, at least half of them are also entrepreneurs. My father was a very bad entrepreneur, but nonetheless,
still had the bloodline.
Unfortunately, very bad at it.
Yeah.
And my grandfather, my mother's father, was also entrepreneurial. So, maybe it's a family thing and genetic. I don't know. But when we did that, it never satisfied me. I mean, we went into retail. We moved up to the mountains where we love to hike and camp, and so we can enjoy the outdoors. And my husband introduced me to hiking and camping in the northern mountains of New Hampshire. We want to play there. I want to live there. And so it's a small touristy town, a ski town, all of that.
I see. Yeah.
So we opened a retail store, and then another, and it was great fun, and everything worked. Damn it! Because now what? It just worked.
What do you mean now what? Why is that a problem? Bored.
It paid the bills. We took 6 months off every winter right after
My
Christmas.
goodness.
We would go to Florida for 6 months to walk the beach. Well, so what? How many times can you walk the beach?
Right, exactly.
Well, 3 times a day, actually, but eventually I need something. And what I missed was what we would now call coaching. What I missed was the training and development work with the franchisees. So I started my seminar business, and somebody referred me to Jack Canfield's training, where I met you, and I've been playing with Jack and Dr. Deb ever since.
Yeah. Okay. So, that's really interesting. So you had those sort of 2 building blocks. You had the business immersion, and then you had your own entrepreneurial businesses. And then I think, like myself, you showed up, so I did meet you at I think it was Breakthrough to Success Pop, or maybe it was Train the Trainer. They were both programs I went to at Jack Canfield, which you had already previously been to. And so, but I think I heard on another podcast that you did that you weren't really going there for the touchy-feely, woo-woo, anything else, or even self-development. You were there for business content. And I was also there for business content. I was just learning how to put on, just the nuts and bolts of putting on a training or facilitating a group. And that's what I was there for. And then you get there like, holy shit, that's not what I was. I was not going to be vulnerable and expose my innermost feelings to a room as you did, apparently, the year before. Yeah. So, but at that, I think it was at that juncture when you realized that what you had been doing was all emotions. What these people, I mean, maybe that helped you put the frame around it for those early franchisees that they were all a bundle of emotions, sort of. And this kind of gave you some context for working with emotions or deepening them, I guess, working with Jack and then Dr. Deb.
The awareness came tapping into the body, using the power of spontaneous imagination, which is not us, by the way. We say that my belief is that imagination is a third party. It's somebody else out of the conversation. When we say, wow, where did that come from? Somebody just popped in. And when I discovered that in my first week, at the Jack retreat, when he processed me, and they brought me a microphone because I raised my hand foolishly to share safely something I thought would be an easy, happy share.
Yeah.
A half hour later, I'm crying and blowing snot all over Canfield's shoulder in front of 100 people.
I was not privy to that. That was the year before I was there too. So
it was
sounds pretty fun. Though. Sounds like a good time for the audience.
And I'm still friends with a lot of those people that were in that room that day, because when we're that vulnerable, people connect.
Yeah.
And you fall in love, and you realize that you're worthy of that, and it's safe to do that. And this is what the healing the world needs. I think this is how we change the world.
It's so true, because, and when other people are vulnerable, that so much allows us to be vulnerable. I remember the first week I was there was, I don't know how hundreds of people in the room. I don't know how many hundreds, but it's large. And I remember a woman at the very, I don't know, first day anyway, who stood up and, she's like this beautiful woman and very professional and everything. And she's like explaining that she was a prostitute and she had 2 young children and that was her career. And everyone, I just remember seeing all these heads turn like, wait, what? Did she just say she's a prostitute? And then she went on to talk about why she's a prostitute and why, and the, her whole emotional thing. And it was a game changer for the rest of the week. It was like, okay, well, if she can say that right out in front of everybody, I can say that I have this, people come out with a lot of things, but it does give you this whole new level to play out, this whole opportunity to just be completely honest. It's a very ripe area for growth, which you clearly were ready.
So how do we talk to our neighbors or our politicians or our relatives that we had to unfriend during a certain political movement?
Right.
How do we have conversations that matter when we don't feel safe in our body, or we don't have there's something internally that when we feel really triggered by certain conversations or topics, right? If we're not able to handle that, it's too hard to let go of. It's too hard to have the empathy or compassion for someone else's point of view.
Right.
And it's like, well, I don't want to have compassion for their point of view. They're wrong. That's
right.
What I want to say. They're so wrong. Why would I want to see that point of view?
Right.
I know in order to move forward, I have to be able to understand how they could feel that way.
That's exactly
even though
correct.
I have no interest in agreeing with it. Right? Can I say, well, I understand why you would feel that way. I have felt the same way coming from somewhere else. And so that understanding, that compassion, if we don't feel that we are deserving of life and love, which the bottom line was what I was suffering from that I had no awareness of. I would never have said, oh, I need a therapist to help me figure out that I'm deserving of life. I never felt that I wasn't. I would have said, of course, I'm good.
Yeah.
Look at my lovely life. Life was easy.
Yeah.
And yet I didn't know that until I did. And I've realized that in my whole journey, inviting in the woo side of that, I've realized that through experience, not through talking about it, I realized that, I was an unwanted pregnancy. I was my mother's 13th pregnancy. I'm the 11th of 12, it says on my resume, on my whatever.
The 13th,
bio, because I had 2 siblings that died before I was born. And I don't know us as being 14. I know us as being 12. But I was her 13th pregnancy. Living with an abusive alcoholic, living in poverty without even an indoor bathroom, you think she wanted a 13th pregnancy? I'm going to guess no. Logically, I could totally love that and think that, of course, there's no judgment there. Because I never knew this, and yet I never felt like I really knew what unconditional love was. I have no memory of my biological parents. And a long list of list of conditions through which I could earn love from my adopted parents. And so I didn't know any of this until I did. And then I had an experience. I realized I could, through the power of imagination, I could have an out loud dialogue with God or with my mother pre-birth. And I could understand this, feel this, and be in this. And so that healing, to be able to say yes, to accept the gift of life and love and be deserving of that, I now feel a little more confident in conversations with people that might have scared me or intimidated me before, even unconsciously.
And those are things that you learn through the process of RIM, of going through RIM. Yeah.
There's new research. I don't know if you've read the book Stealing Fire. If you've heard about that, it's amazing. It's like there's so many. Everywhere I look, every book I've picked up recently is talking about how to reach that non-ordinary state. Right? People, you could do, cliff diving or psilocybin or go to Burning Man or whatever you do. From the founders of Google to the Navy SEALs groups. This book is all about how these people tap into this non-ordinary state to perform at this level that they perform at, accomplish what they accomplish. And what we're finding now, there's a research going on at CU Denver. And maybe Dr. Deb will talk about this when you have her in your podcast soon. The research is pointing in the direction of such amazing power that we're accomplishing with RIM. So they're measuring what's happening in the brain using MFRIs. Oh, dang it.
That's easy for you to say.
MRIs. It's not an alphabetical order, Mike. fMRI.
I don't even know what you're trying to say, so I can't help you.
Brain imagery.
Okay.
The only thing I know about science I learned from Sheldon Cooper. Okay, I'm telling you, it's not my world. The smart people that know how to play with the brain and measure it scientifically are measuring what's happening in the brain on RIM during a RIM session.
Okay.
And people are reaching this ineffable states in their mind, similar to doing plant medicine.
Oh, really? Wow.
Imagination. And so having this new evidence of this is amazing. I've known this all along because this is what my clients keep saying. This is like doing psilocybin, but it's legal and they can do it over the phone in an hour, or it's like doing ayahuasca without having to leave the country or spend all night with diarrhea.
Or find a shaman. Yeah.
Exactly.
But this isn't a new theory or a new discovery. I know that there's been books from, the fact that they can go in and I'm not talking about RIM, but I'm saying reaching the state. I know that there have been, even Ram Dass talked about this, like maybe even in the 60s or 70s. I know that my ex-husband talks about it a lot. He's called it the overmind for years. And that thing that you just say, okay, I'm going to give it to you and I'd like you to solve it and give me back the answer. It's a little bit of a different twist to it, but it's and also there's some books about it, like The War of Art, by Stephen Pressfield. He talks about the muse, which is what you were referring to earlier, that there is this third, when you sit down to write a book, that's who's writing the book. It's a muse, it's someone outside of you. So that kind of a entity or state or whatever we're going to call it is so hard because it's such an intangible, you can't even give it a word. It feels to me that you're talking that RIM may be something, a new way to access it that's more reliable than chance.
Yeah. You know what it is? You were trying to help earlier. You're trying so hard to help make me tangible, which I know is a trick. I used to be so tangible. Now I realize I'm getting less and less.
Yeah,
and
that's growth.
The irony is it's actually what RIM does is makes it tangible. When you start talking about Ram Dass, and this is what the Buddha taught this 2,500 years ago. If you've ever done one of those 10-day silent meditation retreats, I call it Buddha jail. I think it's total hell, and I recommend it to everybody. It's amazing. You have to go.
Oh, I remember when you went on that. Yeah, I didn't talk to you, but I think I saw you writing or speaking about it or something.
And I would do that again. And where you can get to after day 7 or 8 or 9 of being in silence 24 hours a day, it's similar. And what they teach is that emotions are intangible. What the new science says, what thinking fast and slow, Daniel Kahneman won his Nobel Prize on answering this question about why we do what we do when it's not good for us, is the thinking mind does not have access to the data. What the Buddha taught was the thinking mind you cannot think your way out of emotions, which is exactly what Dr. Deb has been teaching in her 40 years in mental health. Your thinker has no access to your feeler.
Just that one sentence should be like plastered everywhere. Your thinker has no access to your feeler. Is that what we said?
So your thinking mind doesn't process feelings. Your therapist knows this and yet keeps on doing the old way of talking and asking you questions about your feelings that your thinking mind that's answering the question doesn't know about. Why do we keep asking the thinker instead of the body? We know this.
I feel like I just had a breakthrough.
I do. Tangible. RIM is the process to do that in an hour, what I couldn't get done in 10 days of sitting in silence. RIM can get me there in an hour of what I spent a week in the jungle doing ayahuasca trips and
interesting.
With the shaman. So I've gone and tried these other things and realized I come back and I say, well, this is what I am experiencing in RIM in a verbal process. It's what Ram Dass talks about. It's what everybody else we're talking about talks about. It's a facilitated way of getting there because when I close my eyes on my own, I don't get there.
Right.
I have someone facilitating me and getting me to the muse. Sometimes my muse has a muse, but without my thinking mind judging the muse every step of the way, I need a facilitator to keep that from happening.
So let me share with you one of my experiences when I saw Dr. Deb. I know Dr. Deb outside of RIM, but I went through one session with her, albeit don't even ask her about it because I think it was 3 hours long.
She still talks about it. You're in the Hall of Fame. I'm kidding. That would never happen.
Wouldn't stop. I just kept going and going and going. I had no idea what I was in for, but oh my gosh, it's like you really got your money's worth. I felt bad, but here was the thing that really blew me away, and just within like 2 seconds, I think, of starting the session, she's like, I can't remember the wording. It's been a few years, but she was something. Maybe you can tell me how you start, but had me close my eyes and just tell me like what was the feeling. Is that it, or what are you seeing, or what are you feeling in your gut? I can't remember how you begin, and maybe you all begin it differently.
Yeah, I can do a little demo right now.
Oh my God! You know what happens
somewhere.
though? Yes, no, like I am, and I know you also know hypnosis, and I am like the world's most capable of being hypnotizable. Yes, I'm just so susceptible. That's why I can't even watch scary movies or anything. But anyway, so I sit down and I have this feeling, or she has me, close my eyes and what are you feeling? What are you seeing? And the strange, because I didn't even know what I was there to do. I didn't have a goal. I wanted to experience RIM. And I have this like vision and of a temperature and a vision of a metal, rusty metal, which I had no idea what that was about. And she kept taking me deeper and deeper. And it's like, what does it feel like? And I kept trying to describe it to her. And it kept taking on new shapes until finally it was just this mass of destructed, rusty metal. And I don't know how she got me there because I probably went to my own world then, but it was a replication of what had happened to me when I was like 10, and my 17-year-old brother was making me push him on a swing. He's 6 foot, almost 5. And I'm, 10. And we have this rusty metal swing set in my yard. And he's making me push him. And I was terrified. I'm pushing and kept thinking, higher, higher. And then the whole swing set collapsed and fell apart. And in real life it did. And one of the things fell down. I've got a scar still. You can even see it here. Fell on my head, and I had to go get stitches and go to the hospital. After that, my brother went and joined the Navy under duress from my parents. And I had not known all my life that I had held this belief that he got sent away because I got hurt in this thing that we were doing where I was pushing him on the swing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can hardly still talk about it. It makes me so emotional. Obviously, that just was a coincidence. He did leave after that, but it was a coincidence. Yeah. And this is a block. I wasn't trying to fix some block about my brother or have I didn't even know I had it. But boy, that unleashed just a whole series of other things. Yeah. And
I can imagine all the other things that could happen in a couple of hours. It's remarkable. And so you're exactly right. So you identified yourself as someone who's really easy to hypnotize.
Yeah.
And so I want to know for your listeners, this has nothing to do with that people who say, I can't be hypnotized. Okay. It's like, well, that's right. That's probably true.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You don't have to be, this is not hypnosis. Actually, It's probably the opposite. I have my hypnotist friends and hypnosis masters, will say that, geez, you're like the world's best hypnotist because they think it's that much stronger, more powerful, but it's not hypnosis. And certainly isn't what people think of it as it's the opposite in the sense that you are always in control with REM.
Right. I could stop it. It's not like you're in any other state. Yeah. It's no different than we are right now.
Yeah. Well, you're more aware.
Yeah.
In a REM state, we would both be more aware than we are now because we're always checking in. It's about tapping into the awareness of what we're feeling and noticing and bringing it to the surface. So we're actually more aware than regular conversation. And yet we're dipped beneath the surface. But it's not in a trance way. We're bringing the thinking cognitive mind is coming along for the ride. It's a whole brain partnership. It's not alternating from one to the other.
I see. Okay. I see. Yeah.
So the client is always in control, can't do it wrong, doesn't have to have any particular imaginative talent. And throughout history, people have called imagination different things. Mm-hmm. Neville Goddard, who wrote Awareness, Power of Awareness. It was like a 1950s version of The Secret. It's an old, but it talks about, he refers to spontaneous imagination like Christ manifest in the body. Like when you sense in your body, something shows up. You say, I don't know where this came from, but For some reason, my metal just turned into this memory of my brother on the playground when I was 10. And where did the rusty metal come from? Well, that just came from feeling something in your body, and then your imagination gave it shape, color, right? And suddenly it's rusty, and then spontaneously the rusty thing. So it's like everything is a Rorschach test, including the images that pop up in our mind, right? It just leads to something.
I want people, though, to understand that this is not a scary thing. Because to me, or like I didn't know that was there. I wasn't going into work on issues with my brother. None of this stuff was something that I was aware of, and I so welcomed it because it was like this unleashing of something I did not know was holding me in some way. And
That's right.
and there were several of those. And like you said, we could stop at any given time. I would think that there might be people, though, who listen and say, oh, I don't want to. And I know when I went to traditional therapy, which was a joke a long time ago, I thought it was a joke for me. I just couldn't get anywhere with it. But, I was afraid at that time that there's so much in there that I'll find out that isn't there, that I'm not aware of, and I don't want to know. Maybe I was abused. Maybe something bad happened to me that I don't know about. And I think that's a fear that people may have. So, is that a fear that you've come across with this? That maybe something...
I hear that fear, and I understand that fear. And I understand the shame that I used to carry about things that I've forgotten. See, once you reveal it, the shame is dead, right? So I remember the shame I felt the first time I said that I have no context for what unconditional love means. That just sounds
that made you feel shameful.
I have shame about that. Right?
Yeah.
And so now it's not. Now it's just a story. It's an old story about somebody I used to know. That used to be me, and I forget that. It's just how it feels now.
Yeah.
And so what I have found, honestly, is people who have spent, oh my God, they'll say, oh my God, I've done 40 years of all sorts of therapy. I've tried everything. And in their RIM session, what'll come up is that boy that called you ugly in the lynch line in elementary school.
Really? That's small.
The mean girl that pushed you off the monkey bars on the playground.
Wow.
And you feel like, oh, I've never been good at maintaining friends. I don't have a lot of girlfriends, all that. I hear this from women a lot. And I might call it the small T trauma, the paper cuts of life that got stuck and that we never worked with. And you wouldn't think, oh, I'm not going to worry about somebody that bullied me on the playground in the third grade. If that's the thing that's stuck, that I wet my pants in the first grade in front of the whole class and everybody laughed at me.
Yeah, gosh.
Right? And it's like, well, that's so humiliating.
Yeah.
That was me, by the way. But it's like, it's not humiliating now. I could just have nothing but love and compassion for this poor little 7-year-old. Yeah. And so when we get to the other side of it, it's simple. But it isn't always the capital T traumas. And I've worked with people who've had just horrific histories. And then it's like the cleanup stuff that they've never done any work on. They're so surprised. Or, I've worked with people who had survived attempted murders. I mean, horrific things happen. And when they show up now, the art and what we teach is how to create the safety so that we stay in our lane, first of all. And so clients won't go deeper than we're ready to take them. But when we're doing that work, that there's enough safety there that the client is shocked at how easy it is to work through it this time, because they're not going back into the trauma. We're transmuting that in the body, because the stuck emotions are in the body, and it feels like it's a volcano or whatever it feels like. Yours was rusty metal. Yeah. And when you go in it, we now know that you can actually change that memory in the body. The research out of NYU talked about how when a fear-based learning event happens, they can put inject an inhibitor into the brain and actually keep it from anchoring, because there's a protein synthesis that happens in the brain, and you can interrupt that. And then they did the study on people, their subjects were simply recalling a memory, and they could use the same inhibitor to alter that, create like an amnesia. So a recalled memory is biochemically destabilized, the same as a brand new memory is not yet anchored. And recalling a memory, when you go into it, you can regenerate it. So now if it's an imagined experience where you have safety, you have voice, you have agency, you have your current adult self with you, you have your resources with you, that new imagined experience anchors in the body as a new felt reality. And so what the neuroscience has now proven is that this is a technique where you can feel safe in your body, perhaps for the first time. So even the most traumatized past can begin to feel safe.
Wow.
And so so when we're working with psychotherapists that work with a lot of trauma, or even trauma coaches, a lot of different nurses, a lot of people work in different ways with different populations.
Yeah.
So we're not afraid of that. And so I don't want to scare anyone, because an executive coach can use this in a corporate setting, one-on-one, working with leaders who can get out of their thinking mind and into a more creative place. Even the person who thinks they're super left brain and don't do that, they actually have access to all of that, like we all do. I didn't think
it's like a Christmas morning, if you're, or something where you have a whole new set of tools to play with. So you brought up a couple points that I wanted to address, and I hope that I remember when I get to the end of them. But the first thing is that was such an image when you said it gets stuck, and I could picture like a river where a twig is sticking up, and then things start to catch on it, like another piece of, I don't know, mud or dirt or twigs or something, and it just starts. And pretty soon the whole river is dammed because it's all stuck on that one little thing. And if you can just get rid of it, you've got a free flowing river again. That image just came into my mind, but
I love that image. It's so right on.
Well, it reminded me.
Well, how the river gets stuck how that first thing gets stuck in the river in the first place.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know I don't know. Yeah. I mean, is that what you're saying? Rim is like just that one little twig. It's it could be such a minor little thing, right? A twig.
Well, so there's an expression, there's a very popular expression in the coaching world that says, what we resist persists. The real quote, actually, what Jung said was, what we resist not only persists, but expands.
Oh, that's right. I have heard that.
Not only persists, but expands.
That's the key.
And this ties into what the Buddha was teaching at my 10-day silent meditation Buddha Jam, is that we allow the negative emotions to flow through the body. They will dissipate on their own. The practice is scanning the body, noticing what's showing up. This is the meditation practice, not RIM. Scanning the body, noticing what shows up, and not engaging with it, not reacting to it. If it's a negative sensation, just notice it and move on.
Okay.
If it's a negative sensation, it will dissipate on its own. If it's a positive sensation, if you engage it and go chasing after what you want, more of it will disappear. If you just allow it, it will expand. The nature is, if we get out of the way and allow it, negative sensations will dispel on their own. And positive sensations will naturally expand. The human condition is that we want what we want and we don't want what we don't want, and that's what causes us to have the opposite of what we want. So what Dr. Deb, how she taught this to me, is that emotions flow through the body like water flowing through a river. The same analogy you just used. And when we sense a negative sensation we don't want, we tend to throw a boulder in the river to resist it. Mm-hmm. We're trying to push that negative water back upstream. That does not work in a river. We can resist that negative experience, that emotion, and it's natural because it's scary, it's painful, whatever. We don't want that, so we resist it. Mm-hmm. How it expands is we're building a dam in the river every time we throw another rock or a boulder or a twig in the river. Yeah. We're building a dam, and so now we end up getting flooded with all of the things we didn't want. Mm. And so if we close our eyes and sense in the body, your rusty metal sensation in the body, when we sense that, that's the boulder. If we can move into the rusty metal, whatever needs to flow on that's been stuck there since you were 10, that memory you shared, you move into the memory, and now it's not too late to have it move on.
Well, and it can resolve so many different things, because I think you mentioned somewhere that grief is something that some people use it for. And that was my brother had just died, I think the year before that happened. So I was churning away with all this and not even knowing it. So yeah, it can help relieve grief, because it did, I needed it to.
Yeah, I know a lot of people,
but I didn't know it.
Grief.
Do they? Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's so. What I find so interesting is that resolving things that you don't know are there. I think, to me, that's just the beauty of the whole thing. Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to have you comment on was something I heard you speak about in a podcast or another interview, that was about using RIM for there's a word you used, emotionalizing. Anyway, it was to set dreams, like to visualize, basically, but from a whole new level. Like, so I've always pictured RIM as something just to get rid of some pain or get rid of grief. But here you're talking about using it as not only, you mentioned that creative problem solving, but also like for any kind of imaginative goal setting, envisioning something new.
Yeah. Well, so a lot of people talk about visualization, and even if that's law of attraction and all of that, most people get stuck and stop on the visualization. They create the vision board. They have all the girlfriends over, drink a bottle of wine, watch The Secret, all of that. Lovely. Nothing changes. And well, there's a couple of pieces there. We need to step into action. If you ask, believe, receive, if you really believed it, you would step into action as if you believed it, and that'll produce some results. And the visualization is what creates the attraction. The emotionalization, not the visualization.
Emotionalization, that was
Emotionalization. People forget that.
Yeah.
What creates, if you want to use the term, that language, it would be to become the vibrational match to that which you want.
Okay. Yeah.
That vibrational match happens with the emotionalization of what you visualize. It's how you feel now that you have that, not what it looks like. How you feel when you're in it creates that vibrational match. And so we culturally, we just aren't that in touch with our feelings, and we don't encourage tapping into the emotions. We've been taught to be afraid of the emotions.
Well, so
when you were 4, somebody gave you a Kleenex and told you to clean yourself up and don't cry, don't be sad. Right? We've been trying to do that ever since.
Yeah. Or when you're 7.
Well, that's true. Yeah. And so, so we'd use it in my retreats when I do a goal setting. I usually focus more on intentions of the outcomes of the goals, because goals are not really your goals. Your goals are just your strategies that you chose to get to your real goal. Your real goal is bigger and different. What is it? But when we close our eyes, rather than leading you through a visualization of looking at different areas of your life and what you want it to be, it's in a RIM-like way. I would do a lot of body sensing first. And when you go deeper and deeper into that, maybe even bring in your resources. And then when someone else, not you, not your thinking mind, because it doesn't know what it wants, but when your spontaneous imagination, whether that's your connection to God or source energy or the quantum field, it doesn't matter, when it comes from somewhere else other than the thinking mind, when that presents to you an image of your career or your impact on social justice or your what you're doing with your family or whatever, that area of your life, the imagery that shows up there is different than what your thinking mind is limited to. With that judge always going, yeah, but you're never going to achieve that.
Right, yeah. You're not good enough for that. Dream on. But you're saying you can actually use RIM techniques to do that with.
That's the way I do it.
That is using RIM. Okay. Yeah, this is the first I've heard of that. And I think that holds so much promise, because some people may not feel like they have any blocks anymore, but they might want some.
I want to meet that person.
Well, okay. I did have that question because I actually asked Dr. Deb that. I'm like, is there ever a point that you get to where you've finished up all your blocks, like you're empty? Because if you're practicing it on yourself, which you can do. This is one of the things theoretically, I haven't tried it, but that you could do on your own once you became good at it.
Theoretically.
That you could theoretically get through all your blocks that you have from your whole lifetime. And she goes, but new ones do appear. And I'm like, yeah, life does keep
I've never
going
met
on.
That person.
Yeah.
I've never met that person. I think
you don't have
that
to be completely clear to do new things anyway.
Yeah, maybe it's, I don't know. I went into my last journey with the shaman and the plant medicine in the jungle and all of that with the intention of learning to love what is. And I said, learning to love what is rather than to love what is. I realized that there was a resistance in me, that it was too scary. It's like, I don't want to be evolved to the level of Adyashanti or Byron Katie. It's like, loving what is, that's a biggie. Do I have the capacity to love all the suffering in the world? I don't know how to do that.
Right.
I want to learn to love what is, but I was too chicken to say, I want to love what is. And it's like, there's a difference there. And I don't know, I think that there's people that have walked the earth like Jesus and the Buddha and Krishna. I think there are people, and maybe there's a few on the planet today. I've never run into a client that's solved everything. There's nothing else to work on.
Well, we're not looking for that anyway. I would just, I mean,
Unless we are.
Maybe we are. I'm limiting other people with my self-limiting beliefs.
Me too.
I guess all I'm thinking is like, at what point do you? But you know what it is. I'm thinking, well, I have to fix everything, unclear, loosen or unleash everything that I've got in there before I can use it to go do some new stuff. But that's really not how it works.
No.
It just all works like this, like a river.
Yeah, and that's what we'll throw new boulders in the river tomorrow. But for today, I'm dissolving this one.
All right. Well, what else
is to be human?
What else? What else shall we tell people about the retreat? Now that we kind of understand the depth of what people are going to learn, how to learn the process of RIM. If you went there and you just wanted to chill out and not really go into the training, or if let's say you started it and you didn't want to continue, could you just stay there and enjoy the?
So we would know that before you went. It's like if it's not for you, it's not for you. I've never talked anyone into doing RIM training or even in doing a session.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're called, do it. If you're not, well, then by all means, don't.
Right.
No, it's an intimate little group, and it attracts like-minded people who are really called to do beautiful work or to take their work to the next level. And so I'd say it's not just for coaches and therapists. It doesn't draw all those. We've been doing a pilot program teaching this to elementary school teachers.
Oh, really?
To counselors. We've had people in church organizations. And all sorts of healers and change makers in the world are invited. And I don't think I've ever had a student really where we didn't start with a personal conversation about it to go into the RIM training. I want to make sure they're right for it.
Sure. And
that it's right for them. And this is the first ever RIM training where we're inviting spouses because we have this beautiful retreat center. And what I find is people that do this kind of work often have spouses who have no idea what they do. And don't really have an appreciation of it. And sometimes they don't. They're a little afraid to tiptoe into our world. And so this is a safe place for spouses to come and play. And so we are inviting to have a friends and family thing where people can come for stupid cheap to come and play in the retreat environment. They participate in all of the retreat activities, the fire ceremony.
I see. That's good. They just don't do the RIM training. Okay.
Yeah.
So
we're going to class, you go to the pool.
And by spouses, I'm assuming you mean any partner, anyone. Yeah.
Friends, neighbors, relatives.
You don't have to show your marriage certificate.
Yeah, and if you're somebody that's listening to this podcast, you're probably somebody that's interested in changing the world, and you're not a spouse or partner, or with somebody that's in the class. Just want to come and play in the retreat space, and
you can come along.
Friends who are doing good work in the world, then come play with us. Give me a call. Or go to the website, read about it.
So that was going to be my next question. So what is the next step? I'll definitely put in the show notes. I'll put links in there for where to sign up. But
that's it.
Is there a deadline?
Go to learn. I'm doing. I don't know when people are listening to this. I frequently do webinars several times a month.
Actually, we're gonna tomorrow. It's going to be on tomorrow. So. You can do it later this week, or
so Friday the 14th, I'm doing a special Q&A conversation on Zoom about. We'll have the link in there about the Costa Rica thing. But every month I do webinars where people can see a demo, have a conversation a little bit about it, and we'll do a little brief demo with a volunteer on the call, that kind of stuff. Introduce people to the work, see if it's something they want to learn how to do. All
right, so I'll have links for all of that on there. One last thing I want to ask you, and that is that I can just. Because like today I went online and I signed up for an hour slot. Anyone can get a RIM session from you and they can just go sign up with that, or do they talk to you first?
No, that's on my website. You can actually purchase a RIM session, and my calendar's online. Book at your convenience. That's all very easy and automated. Everything's right in there. If you want to buy a single one or a package of them, calendar, book it.
Great.
It's all automated and super easy.
All right. Well, I'm very excited. I'm very excited for the retreat and for people to hear about it and learn more, and even just to show up at your, on your website and get their own training, because I think it's fascinating and I think everyone can benefit. I know they can. I know everyone could benefit from it. So, Michael, thank you so much for spending this hour with me and teaching us more.
My pleasure.
I really, really enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in person next time.
Yeah, indeed. Well, enjoy the rest of your stay in Belize.
Yeah.
And, thanks for having me come and say hello to your folks and share what we're doing. It's good
Thank
work.
you.
And you're just doing such good work. Thanks for doing what you're doing to change the world.
Working on it, right? Keep the faith. All right. Take care.
Exactly.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care, Deborah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.